Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Dave Sobel, the Senior Director of MSP Evangelism here at SolarWinds MSP. We are looking forward to a great conversation today about delivering cybersecurity, solving threats to customers, building a defense, and increasing sales. Really appreciate you joining us for this webinar series where we introduce and talk about topics relevant to the industry, bring on experts from around the industry, and have a real honest conversation about what's going on. A few housekeeping details while we kick off this morning. First off, this session will be recorded, so if you need a copy of it later, we're going to be emailing that link out after the session, so you can listen again if you are so inclined. Additionally, we are going to make this interactive. We're going to take questions. We're going to do that via the Q&A panel on the side of your GoToWebinar. So just go ahead and enter your question in. We'll take that as we get into the panel discussion portion in the second half of this discussion. So we'll make it real interactive, answer those questions, and have a really great session. We've got a lot to talk about today. So today we're going to do a little bit of an intro, set the stage on what's going on with cybersecurity, and then we'll dive into our panel. So with that, let's get started. You know, it's really fun to have this conversation. I always like this kind of presentation because I could put any set of headlines at any general time, and from a security perspective, they'd all be different. There's a set of headlines nearly weekly in terms of who's been breached, what the latest trend is, what the latest piece of malware or ransomware or who's been hacked. This happens on such a regular basis. It's really easy to find headlines, and every single week they're different. This is something that we're talking about, and it's at all different levels. We're having conversations around individual machines being compromised. We're having conversations about companies being breached. We're even having conversations about countries attacking one another in cyberspace. One of my favorite headlines of the past few years was when NATO declared that cyberspace is another domain for war, meaning that if one country in NATO is attacked, in cyberspace, it's an attack on all. We now view cyberspace and attacks online the same as a tank rolling across a border. That's a real statement of the way that we are in terms of security, and so it's top of mind really for everybody. And because as solution providers, you're the trusted advisor, there really is an expectation that you're going to be handling the basics of securities, and you are their front line of defense, and they implicitly trust you for that. And as such, you've really got to think a lot about how you're managing the risk profile. There's a lot of security breaches and the layers of all of the different kind of regulations that are happening. For those that are in Europe, the GDPR rollout happens in May, with all of the effectiveness of the laws, and in international world, there's all of those different kinds of compliance, PCI compliance, or potentially healthcare data that needs to be managed. And on top of that, you want to move in and deliver services in here that actually do help, deliver a good experience for your customer, and ultimately do better from a margin profitability perspective, helping with your contracts and delivering more premium services. It's a good way of differentiating. We like to talk about starting with the basics, the things that are required for security that everyone looks at first. Those security essentials that you need to be focused on, things like patch management, vulnerability management, managed antivirus, web protection, mail filtering, backup, these core technologies that you start with. And then you can add layers around managing compliance, managing more advanced security risk assessments, advanced security monitoring. Those may be useful for particular verticals, particular customer segments, or particular environments, but we know that a layered security approach for everyone starts with those essentials. A famous CISO once said that poorly managed IT is insecure IT. We know is why we got into managed services was to help reduce downtime, was to help our customers do a better job of service delivery. And ultimately, by being better in management and being much more proactive, we can do a better job. But what we also find is that we're able to address security really effectively through that proactive approach, and being methodical and being organized about the way that we attack that problem really makes a big difference. So let's take a look at what that security approach looks like. We start with the basics. We start with solid IT management. If you're on this webinar, you're already in that realm, and you're using IT tools, or remote monitoring and management with its patch management, vulnerability management. You start there. That's your basic layer to get things started. Then you're going to add things that are essential that everyone needs to make sure that it's managed and done properly. Things like mail filtering, managed antivirus, web filtering, and backup. Add the real essentials that every business needs. You've really got to make sure that you're protecting people from all of the entry points. Can we protect their email? Can we protect their mail service? Do we make sure that they're not going to be clicking on things? And then additionally, we want to make sure that we've got all of their data from a backup perspective. Then we're going to be looking at the way we do security assessments, and we're going to develop our security knowledge to make sure that we're looking at their risk profiles and we're making good recommendations from a security perspective and not just from a network management perspective. And finally, one of the important things about a security solution is actually being able to fix those problems with remote access, but more importantly, tracking and logging. In fact, when you find on a lot of the things that are required from a forensics perspective and from a reporting perspective, is you have to do a good job of tracking and logging all of the work. That way you can show all of the things that happen during a response process, or in the event that you or your customer are needing to talk about this in a legal framework. You've got to have that important tracking to know where everything was. So we call this defense in depth, the idea of a layered security strategy. The idea where we're putting multiple layers of security controls around the IT environment to make sure that we've covered as many of the points of failure as possible. That's the idea behind this layered security approach. A good analogy to think about this is the way that you secure your car. You'd have to do multiple things to make sure that your car is protected. You're gonna lock it. You're gonna set the alarm. You're gonna make sure to position it in good places. You're not gonna expose your laptop or your valuables by making it easy to do. And you've got that valuable level of insurance in case something happens. IT is exactly the same. You're going to make sure that you use antivirus to make sure you're keeping malware from entering in one way. You're going to patch manage in order to make sure you haven't left the keys to the car open or the windows open. You're going to use web filtering to make sure your customers don't wander into the wrong places. You're going to use mail filtering to make sure that they're not coming, that those threats aren't coming in through another mechanism. And you're going to have backup to recover the data in the event something happens. So that's really the way that we're looking at it. We're saying this is a great security essentials package, and these are the table stakes that everybody needs to get started from a security perspective. So focusing here is the great first offering. You're going to use then those assessments and your toolkit to scan the environment and make sure that you're doing things on a regular basis and having conversations with your customer about where they are and what they need. So ultimately, that's the final piece of this that's giving you a holistic approach to that. The good news is the like managed services, it actually puts you and your customer on the same side in terms of value. What you're doing as an MSP is you're meeting their basic expectations, you're reducing the risk and protecting your reputation, you're making sure that everything is integrated into your management skills and it just works the way it's supposed to. You're going to do a better job of reducing security issues and make sure you're not leaking labor hours in terms of cleaning up afterward. You're going to offer more services and be able to grow your footprint, and you're going to be able to do that with resources you already have. And the good news is that your customers are making sure that it's all taken care of. You making sure that you're preventing those business disruptions, you're just making it work, and you're doing all the heavy work lifting for them in terms of the basics going around there. So we think it's a really great way to do this, and there's a lot of value in terms of this from a marketing and selling proposition. It actually does help you differentiate. It actually makes you even more of their reliable IT partner. You're going to build your value proposition around this kind of idea, and you're going to engage on a regular basis. And that consultative selling, by using assessments and by using that analysis process, is really what customers like to have. You're being their business advisor rather than just their technology provider. Now that I've set the stage a little bit, let's actually talk a little bit about how this is happening in the real world. Is what I say right? Is the theory behind all of this solid? Let's talk to some experts. So with that, I'd like to introduce Wade and Jason, our two panelists for today, who are fellow MSPs and out there. And guys, I'd like to have you each introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your organization. Wade, take it away.
Sure, thanks, Dave. So yeah, I'm Wade Wepler, CEO, CTO of WWorks. We were founded in 1990, so this is our 28th year. We've been a full-on managed service provider for the last 10 years. That means we don't have any more break-fix clients. So as part of that, we've brought in these type of components, and that has evolved heavily over the last 10 years. So we're trying to stay on top of that, but yeah, it's been fun.
Awesome. And congratulations on 20 years in business.
Thank you very much.
Jason, tell us about Elevated.
Hello, everyone. This is Jason Rory, founder of Elevated Technologies. And we were founded back in 2006, kind of as a break-fix company, made a transition to managed services around 2010. And by roughly 2012, we were pure play MSP, and currently about 95% of our revenue is recurring. So, a lot of these tools we've brought in and continue to bring in more tools to drive more recurring revenue.
Awesome. So let's dive a little bit into your security offerings. So how do you do it? Are you doing it separate, integrated in? What does your security offering look like? Jason?
Well, our security offering, a lot of the traditional stuff that we just talked about, managed firewall, web content filtering, managed AV, spam, backup, disaster recovery, managed patch, all that's built into, kind of what I can call our traditional MSP offering. Here recently, we've taken a focus on bringing in additional security tools to, build a security offering, a dedicated one, again, to drive more sales, drive more revenue. And that package is more consisting of tools to do pen testing, vulnerability scanning, bringing in SIEM appliances. We just recently opened up a 24/7, 365 SOC to do all the SIEM log analysis. We're also doing a lot of compliance documentation and user training, which brings in a little bit of project work, which is nice. So we're just trying to really build off, the traditional stuff and bringing in stuff that's more relevant to today, because just doing the traditional stuff is just not good enough anymore.
Gotcha. Wade?
Yeah, same thing. Actually, we're in exactly the same boat. We have the full stack. We include that as part of our managed offering. The customer doesn't have a choice. That way we have total control over the offering. But yeah, we've been bringing in security assessments, bringing in intrusion detection, bringing in a SOC. What we found is our focus is on SMB, and likely most of your clients are as well. There are no SMB tools. So we're trying to bring in enterprise stuff, and there's just seems to be this kind of transition or adolescence period where there aren't the tools for managed service providers for those type of things, assessment, intrusion detection, that we can centrally manage and roll out to a bunch of SMBs. So we're trying to roll our own, and we're seeing vendors kind of finally step up and bring those tools to market.
Yep, it's certainly a conversation we're having too on what we can do more from that. So it's interesting you bring that, but you guys have both mentioned SIEMs and SOCs. Does everybody need that? Is that what you got to go that full length, or is the core offering good enough for most? How are you differentiating among customers? Wade?
I think it's good enough isn't good enough anymore. I think customers are getting more educated, but the threat is more aggressive. So we need to put in more aggressive tools, and having a SIEM allows us to do that where we couldn't before. So yeah, I think maybe we didn't need it before, but I think that the threat is changing.
Gotcha. So continuing to evolve. And Jay, what do you think?
I mean, I definitely agree with Wade, and definitely the reason we brought ours in. I try to educate the clients. With the traditional stuff, yes, you're protected, via a properly configured firewall, and you have your antivirus in place. But with the threats that are out there today, everything's happening in such real time that you really need a solution that's monitoring in real time. So I try to, explain to the customers, like, yes, you have a locked front door, but the SIEM utility kind of helps us detect who's trying to kick the door down and then be able to block that, within a reasonable amount of time. So, I think it's definitely important just with today's threats, just being on top of it and having almost, the ability to be proactive in real time.
Gotcha. So I've always worked under the theory that customers are not asking for specific toolkit. They're just asking you to help them with security. Am I right? What are customers asking for, Jason?
I mean, ultimately, yeah, they're asking to be secure. They're asking not to be, hacked into, not to fall victim to, phishing or malware scams. They're asking to make sure that their data is protected in the event that something does happen. So, we're just trying to take that need of the client to have almost a full blanket of protection and really bringing in the tools to allow, us as the MSP, to be more efficient and proactive and ensure that we can deliver that top level of security service, to the client to meet their expectations.
Gotcha. Wait, are you finding the same?
Yeah, same thing is that clients won't ask for those specific things because they don't know about them. They expect us to know about them. Yeah, so we're trying to find those tools, and we're taking on that risk. And the risk is changing, so it's up to us to kind of bring those tools on board, whatever we feel is right to protect that client.
Gotcha. So again, the positioning here is you're the expert, you're the trusted advisor, and you're delivering a robust solution to help them get where they need to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. So is reality meeting the hype? I put up a bunch of headlines here and feel like we're talking about it all the time. Is it really that much hype out there? Is this a constant conversation with customers, or is it something different? Wade?
I think it depends on the customer and their exposure. So if customers that expect or that are doing kind of online e-commerce or that have that bigger footprint to the outside world, or have information that might be valuable to hackers, that's the ones that are kind of at a higher risk. So it really depends on the clients and their use of technology for their business. We have other businesses that are very quiet, kind of hidden behind the scenes, yet they still hold important information. So the tools might not be exactly the same, but we still have to come up with a solution for them. Makes sense. Jason?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it really all depends on the industry. Those businesses, clients out there that have very sensitive information or have to answer to a certain higher power, if you will. I had a conversation with one of our CPA clients, when we implemented the SIEM appliance inside their network. They were very excited that was happening because they know if there's a breach of their data, they have to answer to the IRS. So that's kind of a pretty easy conversation to have and get these tools implemented, but there are different conversations with maybe smaller businesses that don't really think that they have all that sensitive information, on their network. So they don't really think that they're a target. So that's a little bit different conversation to have with them. And typically what I try to explain to them is, the information inside your network may not necessarily be the target, but more of your network is the target, to infect it with ransomware, trying to, get the ransom to decrypt the files, or maybe just turn your network into an engine, for spam or dictionary attacks, just using it as an additional resource, just to really kind of wreak havoc on the network. So really there's a variable conversations to have, but I think at the end of the day, the solution is kind of the same.
Yeah, and you bring up a really interesting point with that, because one of the things a lot of customers will say, "Oh, I don't have anything valuable," forgetting that actually one of the valuable resources they have is computing power. Their machines
Exactly.
their machines can be taken over to attack other people, to mine for Bitcoin, to send spam. There's all kinds of value in that, particularly with these hackers trying to scoop it all up. And one of the things that we find from a research perspective is that we've moved from an element where this hacking was done in a very targeted way by experts, to now where it's much more broad, just trying to find anybody with anything available. So it's shifted an awful lot. So before I dive in for my next question, I want to remind our audience that I've got the experts here on the panel, guys that are doing it every single day. Please make sure to start putting in your questions into the Q&A box on the GoToWebinar, and we will take them over the course of the conversation. So looking forward to answering all of those audience questions. So you mentioned CPA and that accounting vertical. Are you guys finding particular need for security in verticals, and if so, which ones? Jason?
Really, I think that, again, the most successful we've been, as far as verticals go, are those, that have to answer to some sort of compliance, whether it be in the medical dental, obviously, falling under the HIPAA compliance, all the way down to, we have some customers who have certain compliance regulations that are demanded upon them from their clients, maybe not necessarily a higher organization, but if their clients are telling them, if your network's not secure, you can't handle my data, so we're not going to do business. So we found implementing tools into those type of environments are very easy, and in addition to that, writing a lot of compliance documentation to prove out the level of security of our customers' network, to ensure that their customers are happy as well.
Right, makes sense. Wade?
Yeah, I agree. That's it depends on the industry again, and how they're regulated. And yeah, often we do have clients that are not necessarily regulated themselves, but are regulated by an upstream vendor, an upstream customer. What we found interesting, though, and I think that's changing now, is that up to this point, only logging has been required. So something like a SIM was enough. There wasn't blocking required. They just needed to go back and kind of the logs to see what went on or what could have gone on. Now you have to be able to log it, block it, and they're putting laws in place in Canada now that says you have to report breaches within a certain amount of time, even if you're not a publicly traded company. So that's really, really changing and changing the set of tools that we have to put in.
Yeah, because and definitely you're having to be more aggressive about the reporting perspective.
Yes.
So,
yep.
Of course, I'm not going to ask you to at all talk about any specifics on this, and all of your networks run perfectly all of the time. But based on that qualification, can you tell me potentially, let's go with a theoretical, because of course our networks are all perfect, but what hasn't been successful? What are sort of the things that you've learned a little bit along the way in terms of some of those hard knock lessons that are really valuable in the way that you think about security now? Wade?
I think the biggest one that kind of recently hit us, or rather hit a client, was the CEO spam. So you get an email, someone gets an email high up, says, I need this money transferred right away. It comes from the president, and it's an aggressive social hacking. And that, because it comes through an email, if it gets past the spam filters, you are stuck. So we've failed at that point, but what we've now changed to is educating those clients to let them know these are the things to look for. You should be putting processes in place. So it becomes less of a technology question, but more of an education question. So that's where we've had to kind of change, and it hit us a few times already with clients. So that was an interesting learning.
That's a real specific one, and I've seen profiles of this from, and for those that aren't familiar with that particular attack, the idea is this is a specifically crafted message that looks like it's coming from the CEO or the president of an organization instructing people to move money to a particular location. So the criminal has done their homework and is targeted with a social engineering attack. It's really something. Jason, what are you seeing in terms of kind of those rough around the edges and what hasn't been successful area so far, or what you've learned?
I have to agree with Wade 100%. It's all about the user training. I mean, if you go back to kind of the car analogy, you can have the best safety features in your car that you possibly can, but it all really boils down to who's behind the wheel, or who's behind the keyboard in this instance, right? So things are going to leak through. Nothing's perfect. Our clients have not necessarily fell victim, but have received the same exact, CEO kind of spoofs, and I mean they're legitimate. I mean it's how they haven't fell victim is shocking. We actually with a few of our clients, have gone out and have done user training, because we had one client earlier fell victim, and it was a small company, didn't really know any better, and they actually wired about $14,000 to somewhere.
Oh,
just by falling victim to it. So again, you can have all the best tools in the industry out there, but it really boils down to getting those users trained and being aware, and and if there's any doubts, delete it.
Yep. But interestingly, you both bring up the same solution to this, and I want to dive a little bit into the way that you work with customers. So you talked a lot about user education and user training. So I hear that, and I immediately think, I mean, of course, it's a lot of work to do it, but it actually helps you position as that trusted advisor, because you're able to deliver that real high value education and engagement. How have you guys found that engaging your customers works? Are you doing it with quarterly meetings? How's the education look? Jason, how are you delivering that?
Well, for us, what we typically do is, go out on site, almost kind of in a training or maybe a lunch and learn, kind of setting, where we'll, bring a projector and bring examples of some of these, phishing email attempts, and just kind of talk with the user base, show them how, to look at the reply to address, to immediately see that it's obviously not valid, or how to hover over links to see exactly where that link's going to take you if you were to click on it, educate them on attachments, and then just, essentially just say, if there's any doubt, contact us, forward it to us if you need to, whatever the case may be, but just don't go crazy clicking on stuff. So it's more of an intimate, on-site, face-to-face, class, if you will, on how to avoid, becoming a victim of these spoofs.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Wade, how are you attacking this?
Yeah, we've done the same thing. So through quarterly business reviews, we find we only get in front of, say, decision makers or bill payers. So if we have those kind of discussions, we find it doesn't trickle out to the rest of the organization. So we have events. So we've been doing once a year. We're looking to do twice a year. We rent a movie theater. We have some fun. We watch a movie. But part of that is we actually go through a quiz about cybersecurity. So we'll show them, if you hover over this, so this is not the right thing. Is this yes or no? Is this safe? Is this not safe? And we hand out prizes. And we make it a little bit fun. And that's been actually quite successful. We have a lot of customers come back to us and say, hey, that was great. And then the following year, we have the same people show up answering the same questions, but at least it's getting through to them. And I think it's trickling through to the rest of the organization for people that aren't there quite well. We are getting those ticket opens to say, hey, is this legit? Rather than just clicking on it, asking us that question.
Which is exactly what you want. You want them asking rather than just blindly clicking. So it's out.
Exactly.
So that hands-on effort actually goes a long way in terms of doing that. And I assume at some level, and tell me if I'm wrong here, you're also really adding a lot of value and a lot of loyalty to those customers by being that closely engaged with them.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, awesome. So, I'm starting to get some questions in. I'm going to encourage everybody to continue sending them in. The first one here is there if somebody is really trying to put together their thinking on security, what's a great first step? Wade?
It depends how far you are in with the stack for your MSP stack. But find those missing pieces. If you don't have a reliable backup that you can't centrally manage, look at a tool there. But start small. Do it in small bites. Fix your stack. Once you've kind of got that stack that Dave had up on the screen there working well, then start looking to add security assessments, tools that maybe are outside your current vendor, but that you start to have to add. But have that stable foundation first.
Gotcha. Well, Jason, what would you tell somebody how to get started?
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of agree. I mean, if you do have, the basic stack in place, I think the first step for us going into some of the layered approach was a vulnerability scanner. I mean, it's a quick way to get something out into your client's infrastructure to kind of open your eyes to, what potential vulnerabilities they may have, and then just kind of, build from there.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. So, we've talked a lot about it. You guys both are integrating this into your existing offerings. Are you looking at or considering, more advanced security offerings for specific customers, or is your approach ongoing going to be continue to roll everything into the core offering? What's your thoughts, Jason?
I think soon, hopefully, in the near future, our goal is to at least wrap the SIEM solution into our basic stack where the customer has no choice. It's just going to be part of our basic MSP offering. And then there may be some other, like the pen testing or vulnerability scanning on different frequencies, whether it be quarterly, biannual, annual, maybe some of the popular dark web monitoring stuff that's out there now. Could be just additional, kind of a la carte services on top of the basic security package. But I think moving forward, the SIEM product is kind of critical to have in just your basic stack.
Makes sense. Wade, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Any tools that we can use across a broad customer base, we'll just roll into our stack. Anything that's specific, we've been looking at HIPAA, PIPEDA, PCI. We're looking to roll those out as offerings, and we have, but we've been using a third party. So we're looking to possibly bring those in-house to make it part of the stack, but only for specific instances.
Gotcha. So I'm going to ask a bit of a two-part question. So the first part here is so are you both completely standardizing your toolkit across all your customers, or are you varying it and allowing different things with different customers? Wade?
We use the same tools across all clients, and that's for one big reason is that we only have to train one set of tools for internal techs. That makes it easier to manage. Yeah.
Yeah. Jason, you're the same?
Yeah, we're absolutely the same. We'll take on a client that might have a couple different tools than our standards, but the minute that we got the opportunity to do an upgrade and rip their stuff out and put our standards in, we do it for the exact same reason that Wade mentioned. It's just a lot more efficient to have a single set of solutions for the tech base to troubleshoot.
Gotcha. All right. So the reason I asked that first question is I wanted to follow. Then I asked the one that was asked here in the questions. How do you overcome the sales objection when somebody says, "Oh, well, I've already got my own product. So I've got my own antivirus, or I have my own backup." How do you overcome that sales objection, Jason?
I mean, that is a tough one. If we don't get any rejection, we just rip their stuff out and put ours in. If there is some objection, we'll just kind of let them know. Okay, well, if your AV is currently licensed to a certain date, or your firewall is under warranty to a certain date, we let them know as soon as those tools or devices hit an expiration date, we're going to replace them with our standard. And at that point, we really don't have any battles with the client.
Gotcha. Wade, what's your approach on this common sales objection? I've got my own stuff.
Yeah, we get that quite often. And if it's part of the software stack, it's a fairly easy conversation to say, hey, you're paying the same whether you go with our stack or whether you don't. And it just makes more sense from a support standpoint. So explaining to them that, say, our techs are trained on tool X, you have tool Y. If you do need support on tool Y, it's not going to be as efficient, it's not going to be as good, so let's put in tool X. And that usually works, but sometimes they're insistent. So we'll do the same thing Jason mentioned, is keep an eye on those expiration dates. And then once they come up, then we say, hey, either you got to pay extra or, hey, continue paying us what you're already paying us, and we'll just throw in our own tools.
Gotcha. So the follow on that I'm being asked about here, and I'll let you take it off first, is so have you ever refused service to a customer, said I can't do business with you, and if so, what are the criteria that make you have to say that? Wade, you ever done that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. We've never said no to an initial client. We've said no to a client.
Okay.
And that's been more around just their refusal to, go with our recommendations, a constant battle. And we have, a lot of loyal clients with us. So we know what we're doing is at least right for 90% of who we engage with. So sometimes we just got to say, no, we're done. Like, this just doesn't work. It's not efficient. It's the 80-20 rule. You're 80% of our problem and 20% of our revenue. So yeah.
Right. How about you, Jason? Have you had to refuse to say no to a customer or even fire them?
Kind of in the same boat with Wade. I mean, we typically don't say no to a potential new client just because we're confident that we can build trust, hopefully in a short amount of time, and be able to, get them up to speed accordingly. If that doesn't happen, then yes, we've had to say no to current clients and then fire them just because, they would refuse to, do any upgrades, which left, obviously their infrastructure vulnerable, which would mean more work for us. So typically, like, say, out of warranty servers, we'll pull out of our managed service program and put them on billable time if there are issues, or if they refuse to upgrade. Like back years ago, we had to fire clients because they refused to upgrade any of their Windows XP workstations once Microsoft dropped support for them. So it's just one example from way back when, but yeah, we've definitely done it.
Gotcha. So you both said something I want to follow up on a little bit is you got to build trust. So Jason, how do you think about building trust with a customer? What do you do to instill trust in your customers?
And it's really all about the relationship. It's about being there, face to face and listening to what they have to say, and just really kind of, especially in the first phase of the relationship, just kind of holding their hand through, showing them that, look, this doing upgrades or changing out tools is not as bad as you think. And, again, just holding their hand through the process to where they say, okay, well, you're right, there really wasn't that bad. I trust you now, so let's do some more. And eventually, you kind of get them up to speed. And we're kind of going through that right now with a new client of ours. And it's taking some time, and it's a little bit of work up front, but once you kind of get over that hump and, have that rapport and that trust built, and where they're, willing to take your recommendations and roll with it, then, everything kind of smooths out.
Yeah. Wade, how do you instill trust in customers?
Yeah, I think same way. So all clients that we get are in some sort of pain. They're not happy with their current situation, with their current provider, what have you. So you're already kind of almost on a better level with them than you are with the current provider. So that gets you in the door. You start working with them, and usually the ones that are in pain were not in a managed arrangement. They were in a break fix. So we know that model doesn't work. So as soon as we start to talk about managed, talk about, there's no extra nickel and diming, everything's in, that builds that trust. And then making sure that we're in front of them quite regularly up front to say, hey, these are the things we're doing. These are the tools we're putting in. And often we get the feedback, well, how come, the other guy didn't do this? And how come, this wasn't done this way before? And that starts to instill that trust. They start asking those questions.
Gotcha. So talk to me a little bit then about how you're onboarding. So you got a customer, they're in pain, they're starting you with the first time. What does onboarding look like then? Is there a process? How does that process kick off, Wade?
Absolutely, process. So if you can't repeat it, then you can't bring quality to the client. So we have a process that we have for onboarding. And we roll out our standards. We roll out everything, and we explain to the client what we're doing and why we're doing it. We arrange those downtimes. Once we're up to bringing our standards in, everything's in shape, then we start looking at their other pain points and fixing those up. So bringing in the foundation first is the key part of our onboarding process.
Gotcha. Jason, what's onboarding look like for you?
Very similar. Typically, we obviously prior to signing the deal, if we move forward with the client, we'll do a full documented network assessment and be able to bring that into the onboarding. And our onboarding typically starts with a very short kind of sit-down meeting, explaining to the client what we're about to do as far as what tools we're about to roll out, what to expect as far as interruptions or downtime. And then also, talk to them about any type of project work that might need to be included into the onboarding, as far as, upgrading, say a firewall or a server if needed. It's just more educating them, letting them know what's going on, talking to them about the best ways to contact us for support, things of that nature, just kind of really just getting off on the right foot.
It's really interesting to hear that all of the skills that made you a good managed services provider are also making you a good security services provider, because you're focused on process, you're focused on communication, you're building trust. It's the same skill set, so that's kind of reassuring to see. So we got the last few minutes. I'm going to encourage our audience to continue with some questions, flood them in, and let us know so we can get to all of them in the last couple of minutes. So guys, we've talked about a couple of different, a bunch of different topics around here. We've got a lot of different people at different stages in their development here. I'm going to ask sort of two parts to this question as well, and I'm going to say, and I'll start on one angle and say, so what's the bit that keeps you up at night from a security perspective? Like what's the big thing that we collectively as an industry or you and your business need to be thinking about next to make sure that we're addressing and help you sleep? What keeps you up at night, Wade?
Security breaches. So any information leaving the company, and then a close second behind that, which has always been, something that wakes me up in the middle of the night, is downtime. Okay. Is a server down? Is a critical resource down? How do we deal with that? How do we prevent that from happening in the future? So those are kind of the two big things for me.
Jason, what keeps you up at night?
Just thinking, did we do enough? Do we have enough tools out there? Do we do enough education, to truly protect, these customers and their network, but obviously, can't control everything, and you never know what's happening in the middle of the night. Like Wade said, a breach could be happening, or, a resource could go down. So, that's definitely what keeps us up at night. But, hopefully the more resources and the more proven out security solutions that we can put out in the client will maybe help us get a little bit of sleep.
So you both bring up the same sort of thing. So I think that leads nicely into my next question. It really then is about risk. So we've talked a lot about the process. We've talked about the technology tools, and we've talked about education. The question I haven't asked yet, so I'll ask it now, is so what have you done, like from an insurance perspective? Is this something you've done to change your own insurance policies? Are you selling cyber insurance, or have you looked at it? What are you doing from an insurance perspective? Jason?
Yeah, we have a full cybersecurity insurance policy along with error and omissions, pretty much fully protecting us from, our managed service practice in addition to our cloud practice as well. So that helps sleep a little bit better at night, not much, but
right, a little bit better.
Definitely, when it comes to insurance, but yeah, we have it, ready to go. It's built into our terms and conditions, as far as if there is a breach or any type of data loss that, comes back to being, our fault. We know we do have insurance to cover it. Definitely, it's kind of like a disaster recovery plan. I hope we never have to use it, but we have it.
Wait, are you the same way? I mean, what have you done on the insurance front?
Yeah, same thing. So we've had cybersecurity insurance for the last X number of years. I can't recall, but a lot of insurance providers are insisting that our clients get that as well. So we're protected at our level, and the client is protected at their level. So it's full protection as far as insurance can go.
Gotcha. So we've covered all of the human components here: the education, the insurance, we have backup to protect from mistakes. So that's how we build the real complete security solution. Well, we'll wrap it up with sort of one more question here, and I think this is sort of like the bit that ties it all together. Is what is the way that you show security results to customers? Is it reporting? Is it the meetings? How do you show the results to customers? Wade?
So it's been reporting, and a lot of that, there's a big gap for us because we haven't fully implemented our SIM solution yet. But we do vulnerability assessments. We get all the reporting out of our remote monitoring and management tools for AV, all that stuff. So that's the way we show them. We find, though, which is very interesting, is they're all interested, and they don't even look at the numbers. They just look at it and go, okay, good, you're looking at it. So they don't seem to care what the actual numbers are, which is good that they trust us to that level, but kind of a waste of reporting.
Yeah, but I think you're bringing confidence. Jason, what do you think? How do you report?
Yeah, I think so. It's a combination of the reporting and sitting down with the customer, going over the reports, so they kind of understand, what's going on, and the other thing is just, realizing that, hey, it's been the past 6 months, 12 months, and obviously nothing's happened, so, there's a little bit of confidence there, as you go through and you don't have any type of breaches or incidents, that can kind of back up the reporting and obviously build the trust from there.
Gotcha. Well, gents, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and answering all the questions. I think we've gotten a lot of information into a good 45-minute session here. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So I want to thank all of our audience for joining us today. Again, as a reminder, we will be sending this recording out, so you'll get a copy of it and can share it among your teams and continue to refer back to some of this great information. Join us again for this continuing ongoing webinar series. We do a number of different educational sessions. You can get information about our products and our sessions and our education all at www.solarwindsmsp.com. I'm Dave Sobel, the Senior Director of MSP Evangelism here at SolarWinds MSP. Thank you for your time, and we're looking forward to seeing you on our next webinar.